have 5 minutes for.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Jackman, Barb, I'm kind of stunned by what you told us, that 80% of the cases before the federal court have to do with immigration, identity, citizenship issues likely, and yet the competencies are out of sync with the caseload. Has the judicial system thought about this, about setting up a specialized branch of the court, as you suggest? What are the implications? What competencies would be required of the new appointees? Is there any wind, or is there any wind behind this idea? Because it's a very interesting one. Are you there?
Sorry. I think I have two speakers on, but anyways, I think it's a recent problem, because when the federal court was created in 1970, people were appointed to the bench not necessarily because of those kinds of that training. But in recent years, those are the judges they're looking for because they deal with competition law and those kinds of cases. So we've got a court now that has maybe 3 people that have expertise in refugee or immigration law, and that's it of all the judges. I don't think there's been any discussion. I know the court is breaking down into chambers, like there's a specialized unit doing competition law, but they view immigration and refugee law, as I understand it, as just run-of-the-mill, anyone can do it, and I don't think that's true. So they're looking specifically for maritime lawyers and competition law lawyers and intellectual property lawyers, and not anybody who's involved in immigration or refugee law. So I think it's wrong. I think it needs to be corrected. It wasn't always like that.
Well, I think
it was a more even balance of judges before, but it's not now.
Well, we'd certainly take a hard look at that recommendation. It's a new one. And it's general. I mean, outside simply the scope of Islamophobia, it's got to do with the whole federal court system.
But it really contributes to the problems, I think.
If there is any material or any academic papers on this, or even legal papers, do send them to us, because we'd like
I will.
Mr. McSorley, I'd like to switch to you and to the subject both you and I are very...
Senator, I think that Mr. Nakua wanted to respond to that as well.
Yeah, can I just one quick comment I want to add to this? It's very critical, and one of the features of this, not just Islamophobia but systemic racism in general, is really accessibility to justice. And I think I urge the committee to really look into this, because at many of the cases, one of the key features of it is there is a circumventing of the due process and moving from legal protections to a venue where procedural and administrative rules can be applied at the discretion of the agencies. So it's really a feature of the anti-terrorism laws, and a feature of seems systemic biases, is that they don't like to be in the court, in the legal, full protections of legal process, because it does give them a more leeway when they go the administrative route. And I think this is an area that's really, really critical. CRA is one of them, the debanking and the de-risking of banks is another. Many of the cases are really, at the heart of it, is really circumventing the legal protections people have.
Thank
We're
you.
near the end.
Mr. McSorley, I really want to dig a little deep on what you and I both engage very deeply in, which is charities. And we've had conversations with the CRA on the absence of data and evidence, because they have said that there is no bias in their processes, even though the outcome is revocation of Muslim charities, which is, as you pointed out in your research, more Muslim charities are revoked than any other religious charities. But CRA does not collect data based on religion. Do you believe that the CRA should start collecting data that disaggregates charities by religion at every stage of the process? Registration, audit, and revocation. So we can get a comparative analysis as to whether really Muslim charities are more deeply impacted than other religious charities. We don't know that. So shed some light on this, please, for us.
Thank you very much for that question, Sarah, and thank you for all your work on that issue. It's so key. I believe it would be important for the CRA to update how they collect information about the charities that they audit. Right now, they only collect it on the very broad 4 categories, I believe, of charitable activities. It has to be done carefully to make sure that's collected in such a way that it can't be used to then further stigmatize by saying, okay, these are the Muslim charities, so we actually can, identify them better for targeted audits. But I believe that it's beyond time that the CRA updated its information collecting practices so that they can analyze, and it's possible that it's information that is shared with NCRA or another body, so there's a third party and independence to it that would then be able to properly analyze that information. But I think until we do that, I agree, we're not going to be able to understand clearly how the CRA treats one community within the charitable sector versus another.
So, you talked about civilian oversight. I don't believe there is any civilian oversight of RAD revocations. So I want to ask you specifically whether you believe there should be an independent civilian authority of some kind that oversees the decisions to revoke before they are actually sent off to the charity.
I think that's a very good suggestion. So NCRA, as a body, does have the authority to examine any national security activities by the Canadian government. And so I think something that could be interesting would be to grant NCRA with the appropriate resources. This is always the question, is we can give review bodies more and more powers, but if they don't have the appropriate resources, but that they have a role in perhaps not reviewing every single audit as it happens. That may become difficult, although it will become more clear once we know even how many audits RAD engages in, because that information isn't public. But an annual review, for example, or that's mandated, or that RAD needs to report regularly to NCRA so that they can be on the lookout for any problems or irregularities. I think that would be a good solution.
That's a very useful suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.